Hi, my name's Steve Greystock. I'm senior programmer at the Toronto International Film Festival, and I'm welcoming you. And also, I'd like to welcome Brendan Hannon, the writer and director of the film you just saw, Wildhood. So clap digitally, or snap your fingers, or whatever works. And welcome, Brendan. Congrats on the film, man.
Thanks.
It's a really strong, powerful, and moving piece. I guess I wanted to maybe we'll start with I there was a short film that was related to the film called Wildfire, and there are a couple of films this year that were showing that started out like the initially had a short film sort of incarnation. Do you feel that I mean, there's obvious elements from Wildfire that are in Wildhood, but how do you view them? Is one like is a progression necessarily, or is it a do you feel that they're totally separate, or what was your thinking when you were making this short film? Was it going to be
Yeah, well, it's actually a bit of a weird process because it was more the script for the feature was written, and then we decided to make a short film to test out how we're going to tell the story, how we're going to approach the material, how everyone's going to work together. So it was kind of beneficial to have 90 pages to draw from to make the short. And then when we had it, it became, that proof of concept type thing where you can see, you can just show someone and say, this is what we're going to do. It's going to be like this. It's going to be told like this. This is how the camera is kind of going to move. And, we figured some things out that we were going to use and some things we had to rethink a little bit. And then using that to move into, or the ideas we tested in the short to go into the feature.
I noticed that you the short has much more of a focus on the father, pursuing them than the feature did, which was kind of interesting, because in the feature, once there's a couple, really just the one main encounter at when he chases them with the Coke bottles and stuff, and then it really turns totally into the story about the three boys. How did that?
Yeah, that there is more there, and then initially, and we did film a lot more with the father character. But as we were in editing and kind of shaping the story, when you're in editing, things happen sometimes, and the story wants to be a certain way or move in a certain way. And a lot of the feedback that we got, or watching it ourselves over and over, was we wanted to really focus on the story of these, three young people coming together, and the father kind of showing up repeatedly halted all of the energy and all the flow and those opportunities for the relationships to be kind of coming together and strengthening. So we ended up really totally reshaping that part of the movie.
I think it sort of kicks it really becomes like it's their self-discovery, and it's less about what they're leaving than what they're pursuing. When the father sort of drops off more dramatically, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The road is clear ahead to move forward, right? And instead of, always looking back or wondering.
Yeah. I feel that one of the things that was really interesting about Link's search for his mother was that I think it really it carries. It's obviously a very individual and personal story, but it also carries I think some cultural and historical overtones too, because in some ways he's pursuing a past and a tradition and roots that have essentially been denied him by his father, who doesn't want to know about his his heritage, and certainly, and denies the existence of the mother. Do you want to comment on that?
Sure. I mean,
or is it just is it in every? Is it? Do you know what I'm saying?
You cut out there.
Oh, that may be the way I talk. It may. I think it. I mean, it's. I think it's in some ways it's a fairly. It's a story that I think a lot of Indigenous teens would experience. But it's micro, but also kind of macro as well.
Yeah, there are a couple of spots where things are kind of operating on 2 levels or more than 2 levels or 20 levels. I stopped counting at one point. And people find stuff that I don't see as clearly, and they are like, "Oh, did you know?" I'm like, "No, that's really cool." But that element in particular is fairly clear, like on a micro macro level. On one side, it's a very personal journey. It's something that people can relate to. For me, it's a very personal journey. It's a personal story, that aspect of it. And then for on a larger level, on a more macro scale, you have someone who is trying to reconnect, to go back, to find, mother, to find roots in the forest, in the woods, on the land. And they're running from like a structured colonial aspect with a father figure, like a patriarchal figure, which is, I mean, hitting the nail on the head a little bit hard, but it is operating on that level.
Yeah, I found it. I thought it's often when you see movies that are shot out east or in Nova Scotia as well, there's not as much emphasis on the landscape, which I thought was a really powerful element in the film. It's really kind of where the boy Lincoln, Travis, and Pasmay really sort of find themselves, where they establish themselves, and often you don't get that in either Nova Scotia films or Newfoundland films, or I mean, the emphasis tends to be on. It's sort of a different emphasis, but I was really impressed with the way the landscape played such a key role.
Yeah, we from the very beginning, like I grew up in the woods here, like pretty much where I live now, roaming around. So I was outside a lot, in the lakes and rivers and forests, a little bit on the coast, but mostly in the forests. So as I was shaping this story, that's something that I always kind of held close in my heart. And then when we started production, we were gearing up to film. So clearly we have to move outside of the city center. We need to be outside of Halifax to be filming this. And then the deeper, I just kind of wanted to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods. And we got pretty deep into the woods. And it can be a challenge. It can be a challenge to be filming that far away. But we also looked at kind of one of the things when you see landscape from Nova Scotia in films, it tends to be the craggy coastline.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the ocean, which is great. And that's beautiful. Like that surrounds us. But there's so many other aspects to the land and the territory. And that's how I grew up. I'm afraid of the ocean. So I stayed in the forest this time, but I think it was very important for the characters and for the story. That's kind of where it comes alive, where it begins to breathe. And, that cliche thing people say sometimes where like the land is a character. It kind of is. And there is a truth in that. And it's very much connected to, Mi'kmaq culture, the land and the animals, the plants, they teach us that's where the language comes from. Like everything comes from the land. It takes care of us. So that was, we couldn't go film this movie anywhere else, really.
Yeah, because it's Annapolis Valley, right, or that area.
Yeah, it's all Annapolis Valley, a little bit out past just outside of it, and then kind of peppered around in little spots.
But traditional territory, Mi'kmaq territory.
Yeah, I mean, all of the maritime provinces are.
Right, of course. I do like the fact that it's not a picturesque landscape. It's sort of it's more rugged, lush sort of beauty, which I thought was, unique, or I hadn't seen before, not often anyway. So.
Yeah, I think the approach with that is, we don't need to beautify things. And the same with the elements of the story, right? We just let things unfold, let them be what they are, let people be how they are, who they are. And it's the same with the land as well.
I thought that, it's quite striking visually and like a real sort of style, if you want to, and there's some truly some really indelible images. Like I love that one with the where the uncle comes and he hangs the dough off the swing set, which I thought was it's not a long shot, but it's like really sort of, I think, kind of, captures what's going on in the household in a lot of ways. And that sort of reality, and the childhood thing, or the lack of childhood, I suppose. Do you want to talk about your visual approach of it? Is Guy Godfrey your cinematographer?
Yeah, Guy is amazing. He did a super stellar, wonderful, above and beyond job. And collaborating with him was just a treat, and I would just only ever work with him if I could. But schedules, etc. But the visual approach was kind of riffing off of what we had built in the short, and that was a different cinematographer. That was Catherine Lutz, who was also amazing. Beautiful work, amazing eye. But there was a scheduling thing. Guy ended up being available when she wasn't, so there was a handoff in that way, I guess. And I took that opportunity to just drill down into things with Guy about the feeling of the script, where we're filming, how we're going to film. There's really only one place where I think the camera's on sticks. It's only one spot. It's always moving. Very demanding on a person.
Oh, yeah.
Super demanding. Super demanding on everyone, actually, because sound has to keep up. The actors are always moving. The marks are always different. But because of that, it lends a life to the visual language, which matches the land, the forest and the wild, moving around. So there's always kind of like a movement of some kind snuck in there. And Guy is amazing. He can squeeze into spaces I don't think people can fit into. I'm like, it's too bad we won't get this shot. We'll never be able to get the camera in there. And he's like, just a minute. And he curls up into a ball somehow, and it's mostly the camera.
Good to have a malleable cameraman or cinematographer.
Very, very.
You have, I think, just an amazing cast, an amazing, across the board. And I think the young actor who plays Travis is the same as the one in the short. Yeah. But really, and some great cameos or sort of shorter performances like Joel and Michael Grey Eyes. Do you want to talk about how the cast came together?
Sure. We had with the short film, done some casting locally in our communities, and just kind of like traveled and drove around for like two weeks or something like that, and went to different places and auditioned these teenagers, and ended up casting the short. And then when we went into the feature, the dream was like, well, let's see if we can use all the same actors. And we worked with them a little bit, but they have other things going on in their lives too. And there was a features a lot of work, and they had never done anything besides the short. So we kind of sat down and said, well, we'll find a role for you in the film. They're in the basketball court near the end.
Oh yeah, right, of course, yeah.
Yeah, those are our original actors from the short. Travis, Avery plays Travis. He came over. He cared. Thankfully, he didn't grow too much in the time that it took.
Yeah.
He still kind of stayed. I think he's growing a lot now, but I was like, just hold off until we're done shooting. But then we kind of cast a net wide for our leads, and we saw a lot of people by Zoom before that was happening. It was just something that we were doing. And Phillip auditioned and Josh auditioned, and they were both really good. And then we said, well, it's very important to see them together for chemistry tests. And they happened to be, or they were close enough that we could bring them together. So they were together on a Zoom, and we were watching on the other end, just the chemistry test. And it's like, as soon as it started, like, in 10 seconds or 20 seconds, it's like, okay, cool. This is it.
Cool. And how did Michael get involved?
Michael, we sent a script along to him and reached out, sent a script along to see if it would be something he was interested in, pretty early. And we had intended to shoot in 2019, and then we shot in 2020. Well, I don't even know what time is anymore. But Michael kind of was
sure.
Yeah, he read the script early on, and he read it. He saw it change and go through some different changes, but he was all on board with the story and the way it was told. So when it came time to film, I was like, oh man, I would love it if Michael would come, but like, there's no way. How could we bring him? Like, it's a 2-week quarantine. You're going to shoot for like 5 days or something, or 6 days or something like that. But he was like, no, I want to come. I want to do this. I totally want to be part of this. So we got him in, and he's just a pleasure to work with. He's super professional. He's awesome.
Yeah, he really serves a kind of key, like a key function in the film, because a lot of the they're not super. The kids aren't super experienced with it's particularly Link and Travis with the outside world, or the world beyond their home, or at least from what we know. And there's when you first meet him, there's he's a little older. Where's he headed? And one of the interesting things that happens in the film is that they find areas of support, like it's sort of serendipitous in a way, which I thought was really kind of like, it's, there's always that level of suspense in a road movie about which turn it's going to take. When it is kind of, it's a quest sort of road movie, I think his entry into the film is one of the indications that they're, it's just, it really shows that they're getting that kind of, they're finding that kind of support on the journey once they've left. So it really kind of a pivotal role.
Yeah, and he brought a lot. Collaborating with Michael is great. Like, he brought a lot of perspective, approach, and just nuance of his own that totally, brought that character to life. And just like little touches, he's kind of like this strange trickster uncle figure.
Yeah. It's a cool cool appearance. I think we have to. I'm afraid they're looking at me to wrap up, but I want to say congrats on the film. Congrats on have fun in Halifax as well. But I think we'll see you before that, obviously. And I want to mention that the film was selected by our Next Wave committee, which is our teen high school programmers who are very exacting. So that's high praise. And also wanted to mention that Phillip, who plays Link Lewitski, is also one of our rising stars this year. So kudos.
Amazing.
And film.
Yeah.
Looking forward
Awesome. Thanks. Yes. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
All right. Bye.